Welcome back to another edition of the Austin Bruins Coaches Show. I'm David Coyer. Joining me once again is Bruins head coach Steve Howard. Coach, thanks for or welcome back, I guess, to the Coaches Show this morning.
Yeah, thanks for having me back.
And I wish it was under better circumstances. Bruins have been on a bit of a tough skid in this March, and I've talked with you, I've talked with Coach Rooney about how hard this March was going to be, especially on these March to the playoffs. 4 straight games against the Bismarck Bobcats, dropping the last 3 in regulation after taking the first one 1-0, scoring just 3 goals across these last 3 games. What are just some general takeaways from that 4-game stretch against the Bobcats?
Yeah, first off, they were all really good games. They were playoff-style games. I think, number one, we'd rather be doing this now than at the end of April, right? And so going back to those games, like the first game, obviously both teams went 0 for 5 on the power play, and the winning goal was a 5-on-5 goal that Luke Malkasian kind of banked in off the goalie from behind the goal line. So, like, that's playoff hockey. And then, games 2 and 3 were both special teams games, and I talk about it a lot. And, special teams is very, very important. Our kill got scored on, and our power play didn't do much. So, if going ahead, if we're going to make a run, if we're going to do anything, we have to get those 2 things on pace with everybody else, and going 50% or on the kill or not scoring on the power play isn't good.
And Jack Solomon saw time in net in 3 out of those 4 games. Carl Axelson playing last Friday in Bismarck. Since Jack came back from Sioux Falls, it's been a little bit more of a Friday, Saturday rotation with Jack and Carl. And the first Bismarck weekend, we saw you ride with Solomon after he got that first win. Last weekend, going with Carl in net. Is that something that we can see a little bit more going forward in goal? Well,
as I've stated all year, we with these guys, we have a 1A and a 1B. If we would have got that W for Carl on Friday, there was no question we were going back with him on Saturday. Mm-hmm. It's just, we have 2 really, really good goalies, and they're both capable. They both have playoff experience, and for us, it's we want to win every game, right? And if a guy's feeling it, if a guy has a team's number, and Bismarck can probably say that with Anderson there, he played really, really well all 4 games actually. I thought the goaltending of both weekends were really good in both sides. But having said that, that's what you want. You want a team to have confidence playing against the team across from you. And I think we have two capable goalies, and we got to get ready for this weekend coming up.
And how important, you've been to the playoffs before. You made that Robbie Cup run a couple years ago. Having that 1A, 1B goalie, how important is that to make a long playoff run?
Well, let's be honest. Most teams have a starter, and I think when we went on that run, we had 2 goalies right up until about this point. We ended up losing Ethan Robertson to a concussion, and we were scrambling to find somebody to back up Trent Wimkin. Trent was a rookie, and Trent took us all the way there. He played every game, and so it's one, you got to stay healthy. I think every coach in our league is praying and making sure that their guys stay healthy and trying to do the right things. And your goaltender's, one of your most important players. And, having said that, that's why it's nice having 2. I think back, it was the Boston Bruins a couple of years back, they were rotating their goalies even in the playoffs. It's one of those deals where I just want them to feel comfortable in net, but more importantly, I want the players in front of them to feel comfortable playing in front of them. So that's kind of the way I look at it. And going into a playoff game, it's nice to know that locker room's going out there thinking they can win a game with either guy in the net.
And as we get later on into the season, I think one thing that constantly gets brought up is the focus of the team and making sure that, especially in this stretch, Bruins have been top 3 in the standings all season long, and sometimes it might be hard later on in the season to maintain that focus. Focus isn't one of those things that you can physically train out on the ice during practice. How do you go about making sure that this team stays focused in these final days of the regular season?
Yeah, I think when you're dealing with a lot of 18 and 19-year-olds, some 17, some 20, there's a lot, and the guys that have played for me in the past know this. Like, we talk about distractions all the time, especially this time of year. It's starting to get warmer outside, and a lot of these guys have a lot of friends. Some have girlfriends back home that are, everybody wants them home, and they're getting ready to plan their spring breaks and their vacations, and they're going here, they're doing this, they're doing that, and I think it's really, really important for any hockey player to get this embedded at an early age that you're here. You got to stay in the present, and don't let your mind wander. Don't get back home and start thinking about the things that are what I call summary. That's off-season stuff, and there's a lot of distractions out there, and they happen throughout the season. There's guys that their girlfriends break up with them. Their best friends going through some things back home, and some of those things take their minds off of what they're doing here, which is fine. Like, that's life. I always felt like when you got on the ice, sometimes it was a great escape to remove yourself from maybe some of the hardships that are going on around you. But more importantly, as a team, we can't let things like that infect the team. Can't be everybody thinking about whether or not they're going to go golfing on Tuesday after practice and trying to set up a round or whatever. They gotta stay focused on the task at hand. And I think I'm a true believer in trying to keep the guys in the here and now, even with the warm weather coming.
And you've been on a championship run both as a coach and as a player. We've talked previously on here in your pro career. You went on a few championship runs. From your playing experience, how did you back in the day stay focused and not, get those distractions, those summary distractions, as you said?
Early on, you go through junior like this, and you kind of have some veteran guys, and you have a veteran coach that explains that to you. But more importantly, when you get to that level, you're a professional. You want to go as long as possible, especially in the leagues I was playing in. We were living paycheck to paycheck. So, every week that we got to go further on, we were getting another paycheck, and then there was usually a bonus at the end. So it was thoroughly important for most of the guys. I mean, I told the boys the story of playing in Bakersfield. We were going through the end of May, and playing through the end of May. There was a lot of guys that were done in the second week in March. I think the SPHL and some of those leagues I'd played in before were done way earlier. And so you have a lot of friends that are back home for, 2.5 months, and they haven't collected a paycheck, or they already started working, back home doing whatever their side job was, whether they were cutting grass at a lawns, or they were, working at a golf course, or in my case, my dad had a roofing business. I knew when I got home I was getting up on a roof. So it's not something you get excited about getting home to do, and then when you come home and you see your former teammates and your buddies that you train with during the summer, and they're 2.5 months out of shape, and here you are, you just went on a playoff run. It's a nice thing. I tell them I relish those moments and those times. The memories that I have of going back and playing in warm weather and 70 75 degree weather like we had in the Robertson Cup run a couple of years ago. It was like there's a lot to be said in going to the rink in shorts and flip-flops, and when you're playing real hockey, not when you're going to summer skate or a pre-draft camp. You're playing real hockey at that time, and you gotta love it, because I think back, and from junior to pro, I probably went on maybe 6, maybe 7 runs on playoffs, or got to go to playoffs in that many cases. There's a lot of guys that they only get a couple opportunities to go on a real cup run. And, we have an opportunity here, but, so do 3 other teams in our division. And, two of them are in the top three in the league. You know what I mean? We were up there too, but one weekend can set you back. You go from first in win percentage right down to third. So it's a big moment for our guys. You know, it's a tough stretch. Obviously, it's March. It's really easy to relax in this time going, okay, well, you know, we're only a couple of wins or a couple of games out of clinching a playoff spot, you know, and a lot of guys will put it on cruise control, and we can't. Like, it's just not the time to do that. You know, I think the weekend was a wake-up call, but at the same time, I wasn't really upset the way we played. Like, we played pretty good. You know, the special teams need some work. We're going to work on them. You know, I'd say Saturday, it was about 5 minutes of mistake hockey that we made that a good team like Bismarck, who has a veteran squad, they know what they're doing, and they jumped on it. You know, they ran with those 5 minutes, and next thing you know, we were down 3-0. And, you know, come out, we score early in the third period, and, you know, we got a little bit of pressure, but same time, you know, we weren't able to solve their goalie, and you know, they get the empty netter both nights, and you know, it's the tough part, but it's good to find out now that there's a lot of work to do. We're not done yet, and you know, once again, I keep referring back to getting punched in the mouth, but that's exactly what happened. You know, we didn't go down yet. We need to step up, and we need to play harder this week.
Couple of good goalies coming up as well. Aberdeen having Damon Cunningham, who's been a strong netminder for them this year, and Lucas Fedin, also top 10 in the league in goals against average for Minot. So not an easy road ahead by any means. Looking back, we've talked fairly recently, especially in the second half of the season and today, about the Robertson Cup run you made a couple of years ago here with the Bruins. And I look back at the month of March and month of April from 2 years ago, very similar schedule. 4 games against Bismarck, 2 against Aberdeen, 2 against St. Cloud to close out March, and then 4 games straight against Minot to close out this season. Have you gone back to that season, knowing the run you made there a little bit at the end, or at least to make it all the way to the Cup? Have you gone back to kind of reflect on that season and used it to help better the team this year?
Yes and no. Every team's different. They're going to react different to those games, and they're going to respond. You know, I don't know. I can't remember which games we won and which ones we lost on that run. But at the same time, I do know that we have a couple of guys in our room that were on that team. And so going back to what you were talking about earlier on our focus and how we're preparing for the run and all this and that, the distractions, like, you know, those are our leaders. Those are the guys that need to speak up in the room right now. Just like when I was talking about being a professional in pro hockey, like, your leaders are important. Like, you know, they're reflections of the coaching staff, and if they're focused and they're turning it on at the right time, everybody else is too. You know, if they're not focused, if your leaders are distracted, or they're more concerned about you know, playing cards in the back of the bus, then, you know, you're probably not going to go into a game that weekend and win. So that's important. You got to have your leaders kind of guiding the ship and running the right way, and I think it's important for our young guys to see, and more importantly, they need to win. You know, they need to have that attitude. They need to have that focus, and it's infectious. And you know, the young guys going forward, they're going to remember that. They're always going to think that way, and they're going to remember those times. When you get a kid from a losing program, a lot of times he's never gone through that, or maybe he doesn't have that focus, and it's eye-opening to him. You know, we got a couple that, you know, not everybody on our team won last year or the year before, so they're coming in and going, holy cow, these guys are turning it up in March, and that's the way it should be.
Looking ahead to this weekend, 3 games, 3 days. Second time that this has happened this year. And I had you on the Coaches Show back in November, the last time this happened, and asked you, how do you prepare for a weekend like that? Now you look into this weekend. Different circumstances, few different teams that you're playing that you didn't play in that 3-3 last time. How do you prepare in this situation now with 11 games left in the season, a tough team who's on the cusp of the playoffs like Aberdeen, and then you got the Mallards on Thursday? How do you prepare for a 3-3 like this?
Well, I'm going to do the opposite of you talking about the other two goalies and talking about the other two teams first. We're focusing on the Mallards. Bottom line, that's Thursday. That's tomorrow. We're just focused on the Mallards. Then once we're done with that game, whether we win or lose, we're going to be focused on Aberdeen. And you take it one game at a time. I've said that before. I'll say it again. Like, you can't start forecasting. You can't start looking too far ahead. It's one game at a time. And tomorrow's game is the one we're preparing for. And, not like we don't know we're playing against an Aberdeen team on Friday and Saturday that's hungry for a playoffs. They're on the outside looking in right now, and Scott Langer has made the playoffs, I got to say, every year he's coached in Aberdeen. So they're no slouch. You can't overlook them, but at the same time, you got to know in the back of their mind they're there and they're next up. Believe me, we got video prepared. We got everything ready to go, just like any coach would. But more importantly, we can't overlook or look past Thursday against the Mallards, just because the Mallards have knocked off a couple of top teams this year, so including us once.
Last time the Bruins went to Forest Lake, a shootout loss back in November. Final question here today. 11 games left to go. You've kind of talked about the different things that the team needs to focus on over this next about month. Is there one overall theme or message that you have for these next 11 games?
No, I mean, the overall theme and message is obviously we want to keep the team together as long as possible. Every coach talks about it this time of year, but this team will never be together again. The college isn't taking all 25 of these guys, and a couple of them might play together again, at college or maybe in the minors, but more importantly, it's a tight-knit group, and they have 4.5 weeks left together of regular season, and then they earn the time they get together throughout the postseason. So you want to stay together, you want to keep this thing going as long as possible, and once again, it makes the off season so much better when you can go on a long run, especially if you can walk together forever as champions. So that's what everybody's chasing in our league, and we talk about it all the time. At least I make sure I do. And going on a Robertson Cup run is what you play the game for.
The Bruins, 3 games, 3 days. Thursday night, 7 o'clock from Forest Lake against the Mallards. You can watch that on NATV. Then Friday and Saturday at Riverside Arena against the Aberdeen Wings. You can get those tickets at tickets.austinbruins.com. A lot of fun stuff coming up this weekend for the Austin Bruins as they're on the verge of clinching that playoff spot. Coach, thanks for joining us again here on the Coach's Show.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you in a couple weeks right here on the Austin Bruins YouTube channel.